Recasting T'Challa. Oh man. Next up on Just to Talk. Let's do it. And this episode 4, I do believe that this is going to be all about recasting T'Challa. Because for me, man, before I even get into that, let me preface it for all those that might be new. We already, but I know you're not new to the information that we lost Chadwick Boseman, the lead character, the title character, as in T'Challa, the Black Panther, and the whole conversation was what's gonna happen since he passed. Everybody assumed, after enough time went past with grieving, that we would just recast, or everybody was curious to know how they'd handle it, because no one assumed that you just get rid of T'Challa. But then Disney came out and said, look, out of respect for the family, etc., we don't want to put out, we're going to just let the character pass on, no one can pick up the reins, etc., very TV friendly, or rather very politically savvy, but very, very safe response. Not exactly sure if that's the route that you should have gone, especially because we're here now where there's a hashtag going around saying recast T'Challa, which I fully and totally support. The thing is, for me, I do think that it's a big and gross mistake to take T'Challa off the table, because he hasn't had any time to actually develop the character. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, and we'll probably have this conversation down the line somewhere else, but as much as I liked the Black Panther movie, I liked the Black Panther character better in Civil War, because he came off more imposing, more dominant, more strong. He didn't come off like a Disney cartoon. You could tell that that's the kind of direction that they wanted to go in terms of like the Lion King aspect. We think that Simba's dead, but he comes back to reclaim the throne. All of that. You see little parallels in that. It was more of a Disney movie, especially when you see the car blow up and just the axle of the wheel thing, and Nakia is rolling down the street, and then it's like, come on, that was like real. I mean, don't get me wrong. If that was Black Panther, my first introduction, I'd have been cool with, because you set the tone. But when you set the tone as him being more visceral, more dominant, less jokey, more serious, I just didn't like that atmosphere. I mean, you should just keep him in a serious space, because you was dealing with some serious themes. Needless to say, and I think it made his character suffer, because he seemed more imposing. Like, I remember the first time I seen him running and steaming on Steve Rogers. That was the way they was trying to let you know that Black Panther's a fucking threat. When they was shooting the fucking railgun at him from the top from the chopper, and he just stood up there and he was just eating them bullets, I was like, yo, this nigga look crazy, like a fucking ninja, but like a Panther ninja. He was dope. It was so cool to see him like that. So when we see the actual film, I felt like he was a little watered down. You know what I'm saying? And everybody, they wanted to show up for all the supporting actors, which I'm not mad at, but I wanted something way more centerpiece focused on T'Challa. And it kind of wasn't. It was more about the Ryan Coogler's, the interest of Ryan Coogler. The only time that you gave T'Challa like something personal to grapple with was the fact that finding out that his father just left his cousin out there like that after killing his uncle. And even though he understood how it happened, it was like, yo, you still left one of ours out here to figure it out on his own. And that really crushed him, because at the end of the day, he was our monster. He was our responsibility. And that's the only type of moment where they made it personal for him. I wanted him to carry a personal story. I kind of get that you didn't. I get that most of the personal story really came from Killmonger, because that's where most of the drama came from. That's why he kind of got upstaged in his own film in a lot of areas. And it kind of made sense because you had a more intriguing villain in that aspect. But still, T'Challa, I wanted that same T'Challa that was ragdolling the hell out of the Winter Soldier. I wanted that T'Challa that showed up in Civil War that was just going for it, ragdolling like the Winter Soldier. You know what I'm saying? I wanted that T'Challa, that imposing guy, that fearless guy. That's what I wanted. I get that you wanted to employ a lot of Disney-esque, like Disney princess and kingdom type tropes to it, and I think there was ways that you could have done it without taking it away, because he could have been the Wolverine of the whole Marvel universe, and that's what I was kind of expecting. But with that being said, we're here now, and to redirect the whole film that was supposed to carry on Chadwick Boseman's character, and now do this heel-toe pivot to make it Shuri, as reports initially had said that she was going to be the Black Panther. Now through scoops and what have you, they're saying that I don't know if it's much of a spoiler, but they saying that they want to end it with a T'Challa. They show up and say they had a kid together, him and Nakia, and he would eventually be the new Black Panther. And I guess they would try to have him at a decent enough age that, let's say 2 years down the line, he could enter the Young Avengers or something to that effect. I don't want that, because T'Challa has a lot more story to be told, and especially if you're going to try and fold over the X-Men, unless you're going to make it T'Challa's son that had the relationship with Storm, and then that means that you're starting with a very, very young X-Men. It's just too much lore that you would lose again. And anybody knows I'm not even a fan of the X-Men coming into the MCU, and I'm not even exactly sure if Kevin Feige has been on a record for saying that's what he's going to do, fold them over. But needless to say, this is why, because you lose too much story by forcing something that you didn't even expect to happen into something that now has to be planned for it. Don't get me wrong, a lot of great stuff could come out of that type of pressure, but this is too drastic of a change. Like now, if you was to see a trilogy of the Black Panther, it's just really one movie. At best, you could incorporate Winter Soldier in his first introduction, but it's still not the same. Because then now it's like the Black Panther is more about the title than the actual character. And I'll be honest with you, I want the character to be back in the MCU as he stands. A lot of people will argue for representation purposes and all of that. And you know what? I don't like to lead with representation first. I wouldn't even need to use that as my argument. There's so many reasons to recast it. I just don't see why not. And if it's about respect for the family's been out there. At least one of the brothers been on the record that he doesn't think that he thinks it's a mistake. He doesn't even think this is something that Chadwick Boseman want to do. And I think it's kind of real weird that Disney was so aggressive in the push of no, we will not recast it. We're gonna go to a female and it's like, come on, man, like. So this is what we doing, and y'all like the representation capital. Y'all like talking about representation so much. So as soon as you get a black male character, you make and he's doing good, and he's like getting a lot of reverence. Especially, Oscar nominated film, the first one that was actually nominated. I don't think it should have been personally, like, don't get me wrong, but I'm not going to take nothing away from its nomination too, because I really did enjoy the movie. I just didn't think it was as good as people made it out to be, that it would be deserving of any kind of Oscar nomination outside of what it means and meant to black people, because now it's part of the black lexicon. We talk Wakanda, Wakanda forever is part of, it's something that I used to read and know of in the comic books is now part of black pop culture. Just like that, right after the movie dropped. Not everybody knows what Wakanda is and understands the technological aspects of it and its historical significance in terms of this is an untouched black country that never experienced colonialism. And that was something that was just an interesting premise all to its own, and all the technological advances because of the comet that they lived around, the country was built around, and the soil and all the things that come from it. It was just an interesting kind of atmosphere to see that you could tell a story of black excellence, black Africans in particular, to achieve technological feats that the world over could never catch up to on its own. That was just like an amazing premise. And then the dichotomy of how that looks to the whole entire world. And even in the film, to explore it was so interesting. And the way, and I didn't like how it ended so quick, like give our technology to everyone, because it just opens up too much of Wakanda's secrets that I think that now if we're going to do that, then the world over is going to start to change technologically speaking. But neither here nor there, there's still a lot more story to be told to carry that character and that narrative all the way through to something a little bit more interesting in terms of character development for T'Challa, heavy Eliza Crown scenarios, or maybe even like a Game of Thrones-esque thing going on within the kingdoms. There was just so many different types of ways you could take this story and do some real interesting world building, real interesting commentary on black politics, but most importantly, because I wouldn't want them to overly focus on it, but it's hard to escape. But they could have really kind of told it from a very sincere perspective of people that have been untainted from the world over, and that could have been very interesting. And how untainted people would beef amongst themselves, and do they experience crime within their own communities, and how does that work? They could have also, like I said, they could have really used Black Panther as this international James Bond type of character going around trying to reappropriate anything that was made of what's the material? Oh man, I'm so mad at myself for forgetting about the material that the suit is woven out of. Vibranium. Exactly. So there were just so much different ways you could have went to tell an interesting tale from a superhero perspective that is unlike anything else you have going on in the MCU. We talking politics. We're talking family, bloodline, maybe even secrets that was never shared before. There's just so many different interesting things that you could do with T'Challa, especially as being a prince. He might have studied abroad and had different interactions and relationships with others. Hey, why don't we even say that T'Challa was somewhere in another country and might have even had a mild romance, but because they were from two opposing cultures, and it doesn't have to be no like he was in love with like and you don't have to do the black and white thing because it might be a little too like on the nose, but you could go like black and like Southern Asian, you know what I mean, Southeast Asian or Chinese. That would have been very interesting, especially with, if you understand how Chinese people view black people. That would have been an interesting thing to do, to say that he studied abroad in China at one point when he was young, learning martial arts, and met a young lady over there that he actually liked. They had a little crush on each other. But as their relationship, could it be because, and you could touch on these small little things between China and Africa, and really do something very interesting like Montagues and Capulets, and then have them run into each other years later and show this king now of a country from that young prince of once before with a different type of personality type, but the sexual tension between the two, possibly the cultural differences. It could show how stereotypes don't serve people, but most importantly, because like I said, these could be just fun things to play with, because like when you're writing a dynamic like that, you will have to, how do you approach a lot of real shit without overly trying to message. There was things that you could have done with it that now that you can never explore. Like that's the point. Like with T'Challa, even though like a leader of a kingdom in its own country with its own army, you'd be like, well then what do you do with that character? It's almost like what upskill battles can he have? Well, remember, and I like how they set it up. He has to go, like, a lot of some of the technology has been appropriated and stolen all over the place. So at the end of Black Panther, what happened? Killmonger wanted, or was trying to send guns and weapons to constituents elsewhere. Maybe in part 2 he should be chasing and trying to hunt all that down while he is being hunted by someone. That would have been interesting. But in part 2, we already know what was supposed to be. It was supposed to be the Submariner story. Now, if you're going to have the Submariner story, it would have behooved them to tell that back and forth tale between two kingdoms, an underwater kingdom, which their goals are going to be exemplified by, like, Latinos, most importantly, of the Native American, Mexican side of things. And say that's how Atlantis looks. That was such a good way to go. I think that was such a dope way to go. Two people warring with each other, two different types of people, and using their actual race to kind of be part of the story. Like, this is how the Atlantis people look like, because that's how they look like. I love these type of ideas. Take Atlantis from a more Native American type of spin, as opposed to other type of depictions of where it looks a lot more looks a lot more European. You could do something that leans more into Native American and South and Central American type of design. That's just, like I said, it was such a great idea. And now without T'Challa there, you take a lot of backstory, you take a lot of things that brings tension into the room. Once you put Shuri into that place, it seems artificial. Shuri, she's too young to have that much history with Atlantis. And even if you want to say that she could have remembered it, because when T'Challa was younger, or when she was younger, but she was like a real little sister, like, I don't see it fitting with her, especially for the type of way they designed her personality to be. She is very much more, I don't want to say naive, but very smart, but very technologically savvy, and that's where she was most dominant at. They never expressed anything about her that showed that she could fight. And let's be for real, even when Killmonger showed up, that was a moment to show that, I do be studying this scrap game. She came out there to fight. I'm sure that she knows a little bit, but nothing about her showed that Shuri was of that type of caliber fighter. If you ever watched the Black Panther animated motion comic, if you ever get a chance to look at it, look it up. That Shuri, within the first scene of, I think it was when they introduced her, when T'Challa won for the fight, she wanted to show up to fight. And the fact that you seen her show up in just that moment, they let you know that, nah, she's she scraps. She's a warrior. That was known. The girl, I think even more so in the animated version, she was more of a fighter than she was an intellect. She was definitely a warrior girl. She was definitely of the Dora Milaje elk all day long. She was built like that. And they never did that with Shuri. Because the anticipation was there was never no need for that right now. They could have built her up for that kind of echelon in 2 and 3 and showed that she's been training ever since Killmonger, but you could also show that she knew how to fight from before. Maybe even hint that she's been so rusty that she's, something that makes you understand why you never got a chance to see it in the first film. But she had potential to be a better fighter, but she focused more on her studies, and maybe in 2 and 3 they could have focused on building her up as a physically dominating character. So by the end of Black Panther 3, should Black Panther, like forfeit the cowl, quote unquote, if you want to do it that way, if you know what I mean, or forfeit the Panther title, and he gives it to Shuri, that Shuri could actually take on the title seamlessly, because now we built her up through all the Black Panther films. The fact that they had a abruptly insert her as that because of the unfortunate passing of Chadwick Boseman, it places the opportunity of actually convincing you that could like happen seamlessly. It puts it in a deficit, because now you have to, in one movie, explain how she got elevated to that kind of status of a fighter, that she could wear the mantle and carry it on until, if it's true or not, she could pass it down to her brother's son, her nephew. But there's none of that. Without T'Challa, you have none of that. And I feel like we haven't even gotten a film centered around T'Challa himself. I don't care what anyone says, the first Black Panther movie, the best and meatiest and juiciest parts of the script was really all Killmonger. And I don't want to see him wear the Panther suit now. And I don't want him to be a variant. Don't get me wrong. If you would have told me we're gonna get Michael B. Jordan to be Black Panther, I'd have been cool in the beginning, but not now. We need another actor, and we don't need to recycle and use him as a variant. You could get away with it, but nah. Give me an unknown. I like all the ideas that a lot of brothers have brought to it as arguments to say, like from E-Man, like I don't want to butcher brother's name, but he has a great channel, and he's one of the guys that's been really at the forefront of the recast T'Challa movement, if you want to call it that, which I'm totally in full support of. I do feel that I do really feel that it's a big misstep, because you lose so much history, so much story, so much more, and it's writing the film from a deficit like that when it wasn't even intended that T'Challa isn't off the board. It's an uphill battle, and why do that to yourself, especially when now you have to write around how these characters have to move when T'Challa has passed. And if anything is to be said, is to be truthful from a lot of what I've listened to online from scoop channels, I still understand what a guy like E-Man says when he says, yo, why kill T'Challa off again in another film when he died already? And, they kind of fake killed him in the first film, which makes sense. And if you want to get to the psychology of a black man getting killed and all that, I could understand all of that, because that's a fact. We don't need no more of that. We don't. We finally got a black man, African man from the motherland that's going to stand on something. And you guys are so quick to flick out of it. I just think that was just a poor choice, especially for Marvel, who seems to, as of late, go out of their way for representation purposes. So if everything is about representation, then why would you rob the world of a strong black male character? We already got plenty of strong female characters in Wakanda that steal the show. From Shuri, she stole a lot of scenes just with her personality, beautiful personality, the way she kind of exemplified as an adorable little sister. Then you got Angela Bassett, which is a legend, but they didn't give her enough. But you could give her a lot in the next film because she is a credible actress. You got I forgot all the other names from the Dora Milaje, but the main lieutenant from Dora Milaje from Walking Dead, another great actress. Then you got the other sisters that's in the Dora. I mean, there's so many things that you could, so many like strong black female characters to this one black male character, and you're willing to bench him for his son for years? Are you fucking kidding me? So who are you gonna? Cause where's the other black male character? I'm sorry to say, you're not gonna do a War Machine movie. I mean, and I don't care what anyone says. Falcon as Captain America, I think he'll do a decent job, but he's got an uphill battle to actually carve himself as the Captain America, because that's still a title, and everybody will always look at Steve Rogers as Cap. So you gotta make sure you write him in such a manner that everybody could see the Captain America in Falcon, but on his own. But he's still using another title that someone else had. And I'll be honest with you, why do we always have to have one strong black male character anyway? Why I gotta be one token one? So even if you have Falcon as the Captain America, why can't we have Black Panther still there too? I mean, at the end of the day, I still think that Black Panther is a worthy character, and this was a time where they could actually really build a great legend. Like, this was the bedrock, the foundation in which any other film that they did, whether they rebooted down the line or when they rebooted years and years and years from now, there's so much rich history to build off of. And keep in mind, Black Panther doesn't have a big rogues gallery, so you could have went out of your way to elevate all his, like, I'm mad that they killed Claw in the first one, but because I love what Andy Serkis did, you could have developed his rogues gallery, as minuscule as they were, and developed them into big name, heavy hitters for Black Panther to fight for years and years and years to come. And left enough there for next writers to come in and say, man, we could take this and build off of this. Even comic book artists would have been like, you know what, let's go I like what the movie did with these old school villains that they never really did enough with for Black Panther. We could take them and really start developing his rogues gallery and really elevate him to the level of a Batman, but different, because he's pretty much Batman. But then now you could create why Black Panther moves this way, his archetype, and really like carve a very centered mythos that legends are built of when it comes to the comic book characters and genres and superheroes. And again, to not recast is to leave all of that in the dirt and then leave this movie in a deficit to be carried by everybody else. And even though I still felt like he wasn't at the forefront of his own film in the Black Panther movie, make no mistake, he was the locus in which everyone breathed on. Because once you remove T'Challa out of it, then everyone had nothing to play off of. Killmonger had to play off of off of the earnestness and regalness and the honor that was T'Challa. Everybody else had to play and bounce off of what T'Challa had brung. That's what made them stand out and sometimes even steal his scenes. But never forget that his presence was felt all throughout the film. I still feel that they should have given him way more to do and way more character development for himself. But then you take off the possibilities of a great black romance, the likes of which that we could have really made some real beautiful scenes, something that black people, especially from the motherland, would have really been proud of. You know, we could have showed black beauty on a certain level that no one's ever really experienced. Like, I would have loved to have done some amazing sweeping shots of what Wakanda really looks like, how black people of the motherland, all shapes and colors, just being beautiful in their own skin. There were certain moments even in the Black Panther film that I think went over a lot of people's head when Okoye, that was her name, took off the wig and said, I don't know how people could wear this because it's not her. She rather wear something that was her. That's deep. That's impactful. That's needed. You could have showed to the world, like one of the most beautiful things I always said that how they presented T'Challa was kids are supposed to wanna, no matter what child, you're supposed to wish you could be T'Challa. Like as a black kid, we lived vicariously through these characters. We weren't the same color as our favorite characters most of the time because most of the time there wasn't even a lot of good black characters worth its salt. They were out there, but you had to really dig in the crates. And even when they were good, they never got enough shine. They never carried the whole show. Sometimes they may give a black character a good episode, some of the good ones, but a lot of times they were left to the background because they were never the leaders or the centerpiece of the story. There was always like a best friend or someone off to the side that you'd be like, oh, that was a dope character, but they never really did anything to develop them, nor their interpersonal relationships. So while now that we're into this weird thing where everybody's all about identity politics and shit like that, you had the opportunity to really start fleshing things out, showing black beauty to the world. Like there's nothing more impactful than seeing a child take off in a Black Panther costume. To me, you know, when we've made a moment and mark in the world is when a kid takes off that mask and it's a blonde hair, blue eyed little boy wanting to be Black Panther, aspiring to be a Black Panther, while all y'all assholes might be like, oh, well, how could that little white kid want to look like Black Panther and be an African king? Why not? You know how many little dudes wish they was these ninjas, wish they were like everybody lives vicariously through these characters, and no one cares about the shade. That's like minuscule when you living through these characters that you look up through and wish you could, like, you see yourself in there. You just see yourself there. You just see yourself there. If I was them, if I was the T'Challa, this is how I'd be. We don't get caught up in all of that. Yeah, I'd have just been a black version in my mind, yeah, whatever. But that's my favorite character, and I'm living vicariously through him. That's beautiful, because that's what every black kid was always doing with white characters that was dominating the TV screens growing up. That's when you made your mark. That's when you show that it doesn't matter. When other people wish they look up to those characters and always say, that's my favorite character. I was a kid, man, I used to wish I was the king of Wakanda, all that shit. And it's supposed to be an Asian kid telling you that when they was growing up. Yeah, he's my favorite character. I wish I was the king of Wakanda, man. That was my favorite character. I always played him in video games, man. Shoot, always wanted to be the Black Panther. You supposed to be happy and say that. How many kids grew up that was black and said they wish they was like Peter Parker? I mean, figuratively speaking, of course, but you get what I'm saying. You looked up to, you aspired for as a kid. You lived vicariously through, and you've missed the opportunity to really create and push the story in such a manner that you can actually get that, and you can get to that. All the things that everyone's talking about, and you're just leaving it on the cutting room floor because, and I get it. It comes from a sincere space. I believe it does. I hope it does. But I'm so disappointed that Marvel was so quick to heel toe pivot off of continuing T'Challa's story to make it about Shuri's story, Shuri becoming the Black Panther now, and all at the same time of bringing in the Atlantean story, which T'Challa will totally not be a part of, unless it's like you go back in history, like a flashback. So how can you honor it? In my estimate, what I would have done with this is I'd have recast it, and what I would have done was I would have tried to impose a scene where he goes, and it's a story that mirrors a great grandfather, or maybe even the first Panther. Hear me out. And I would have had a story that taps on maybe the first Panther, the second Panther, but a very, very early Panther. It'd be great to say the first Panther, and there's a reason. And I would make this story, especially now, matter of fact, now thinking about it, with now that you're bringing in the Aquaman, but damn near the same. What's what's his name from Atlantis? Submariner. I keep forgetting. Have I been calling him Aquaman all the time? Anyway, the Submariner. No, I just said Atlantis, but Submariner is supposed to be in this. I would have just said that since they go back to beefing for years back, I would go tell a story that goes way, way back to their fathers. And at some point, you always see Black Panther in a costume, maybe fighting his grandfather and all of that. And at one point, he takes off the mask, and we use Chadwick Boseman's face. Maybe a little different, maybe add a little gray onto it to say that this happened in his older Black Panther, but an earlier version, but an older version of him, just a little bit, just to show a little variation from the Chadwick we lost to now. But I will put his face onto it. Here's the reason: because now, if anytime he goes to the world of the to see all the past Panthers, now you have a reason to always put an image of Chadwick Boseman out there, because now he's out there, and now you could always honor him that way. And then what I would do is you would see him walking down and I wouldn't even let you know it was the earlier precursor Panther that I'm talking about, whether it's the first Panther or not, but the Panther of antiquity. I would have showed his face the whole time. I would have showed him in costume, maybe off center, telling you his story, maybe doing it for first person, but cutting it in between, because his journey is supposed to rediscover something from the previous Panther. Then at some point, while you see him walking down, like I guess in a corridor where he has all the late Panther kings, and you just see him walking, and you see the actor that played the father, but you know what I mean, in there, his painting, but like you see him walking, and then you see him stop and look up, but we don't really see the face of that Panther, that earlier great ancestor. But by the end, when you see whatever that great grandfather was doing, that has everything to do with this film, as we finally get closer to getting an image of what that Panther looked like, because he finally takes off the mask or the helmet, and when you turn around, you see a little bit more weathered but older version of Chadwick Boseman, at the same time as you see him looking up at the painting of his great grandfather, and then you see that same face up there. And then now in the like the Chamber of Kings or wherever he has paintings of all his ancestors, the previous Panthers before, you'd have Chadwick Boseman's face as an earlier Panther. Never taken away from what he did as T'Challa, because he is T'Challa, but this new T'Challa that's carrying on the mantle and carrying on the new facial aesthetic, he's just going to carry on the mantle, but there's an ancestor that looked just like the actor Chadwick Boseman that played the Panther, played T'Challa, but now his face will be not only synonymous with T'Challa, but with another precursor character you use him to play as. And then now you'll always have his face in the room while you have this new Panther walking around as a new facial aesthetic to carry it on. But you can now immortalize Chadwick Boseman and his features in the bloodline. He could always been in the astral planes where he goes to when he sees all the kings. And if you want to, you can make him converse with him. You don't have to overly pimp out his image. You could just always, every now and again, as an Easter egg, when he goes up there to the kings, you could see Chadwick Boseman probably standing out there with the rest of the Panthers. But you just have to look for it. That'll be your Easter eggs. Or certain shots where he's in the throne room and you see paintings of other Panthers. You will see the painting of Chadwick Boseman as not T'Challa, but as an earlier Black Panther. But now his presence can always be part of the Panther films moving forward, because he's always in the background. His legacy is never gone, and you can really honor him in that by immortalizing his face and facial feature as one of the Panthers prior, because he was the Panther prior, if that makes sense. And I hope it really does. And I think that would have been an excellent way to honor Chadwick Boseman without completely forfeiting everything that he contributed to the film, and saying, all right, now let's carry it on with Shuri, etc., etc., because it does a lot of damage to the story. It takes away from, because I'm coming to see Black Panther. I don't want to see Wakanda Forever. I'm not even interested in this movie. I'll be honest with you, I'm really not interested, not even a little bit, because of this. I'm not interested like that. I mean, I'm going to go see it because I love comic book movies and I liked the Black Panther, the first movie. But once they said that they wasn't going to recast and then go into Shuri, I said, oh no, I'm not with this. I'm bored now. I wanted to follow T'Challa. I don't want to hear Shuri's story yet. Shuri, I loved her character as the character was. Y'all didn't write her up for that, at least not yet. So this movie, even though I'm going to see it, I hope in this movie you show the validity of her being the Panther, not because we have no choice in this in the comic books and we don't have Chadwick Boseman no more. No, I want you to be like, nah, she could do it. This girl got it. She could play a very interesting, like, I'm not saying that she can't. I want to see Letitia Wright really go there, but then now we lose that innocent, like cute younger sister motif that I think really worked for T'Challa as a great balance. I think there was, we really lost, we're really going to lose out so much more. We lose so much more not recasting than we actually do gaining anything. Actually, there is no gains. There is no gains. Because now you have to make people watch Black Panther for a whole new character, let alone a whole new actor. And Letitia Wright, even though people love her as an actress in the film, no one wants to see this right now. That's not what they fell for. What people fell for was the little genius sister that could go back and forth with T'Challa. Not this Black Panther on Shuri. Not to say that we can't. In this movie, you're going to have to sell it at the same time bury T'Challa, and that's just not. That's too much heavy lifting for Letitia Wright, and it's not even fair for her to have to accept the fact that she has to carry that on. Make no mistake, it'll be hard for anybody to carry on what Chadwick Boseman did, but I think it would have been more appropriate that you would at least went that direction as opposed to just writing him completely off and going to Letitia Wright. But that's just my 2 cents, man. And let me know what you guys think in the comments below, man. I'm really not excited for Wakanda Forever. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to see it. But at the end of the day, I'm not that excited for it. And it's not like I got an attitude towards it. It's just that once T'Challa's not in Black Panther, then it's like, why am I going to... Wakanda Forever should have been a Wakanda movie spun out of Black Panther. It doesn't feel... It should not have been the sequel. It should have been like after they did Black Panther 2, they should have did a Wakanda Forever where you could explore Wakanda, or that could have been a series if you wanted to do that. But I don't know. That's just what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments below. You already know what it is. Let me know if you enjoy just the talk. I'm going to try and do this a lot more so it makes it a lot easier for me to produce, so I can at least feed the channel a lot more consistently, and I can always let you know where I'm at and that I'm really up on things. It's just that I'm recording, but I just don't have the time to produce it because it takes a lot more man hours for me to do that. And as always, you know me, I do a lot. And I mean, with everything that's going on in the world, I still want to give y'all something positive. Or a positive distraction so we can geek up about other things in the meantime, in between time, as we try to figure out how do we move forward in the world today. With that being said, let it all go off in the comments below. Please, you already know, like, share, subscribe. See you next time, and as always, till I have a better outro, chill.